She twisted a shiny gold key in my front door like she owned the place, her heels clicking on the porch. I froze for a second, watching through the window because I knew that wasn't possible. Nobody had a key to my house except me. She jiggled it harder, muttering, "Stupid lock, it should work." That was when my son yanked the door open from the inside. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked. She jumped back, eyes wide, but then forced a fake smile. "HOA business. I have the master key to every home here." My son stood tall, blocking the entrance. "Not this one. This house isn't part of your HOA." Her face twitched. She waved a piece of paper like it was gospel, shoving it toward him. "It is now. I make the rules, and your family doesn't belong here." The nerve in her voice made my blood boil, but I stayed quiet behind the corner, listening. She tried to push past him, but he didn't move an inch. Finally, she hissed under her breath, "You'll regret this." And then she stormed off down the driveway, but not before tossing her fake notice on our porch. "Violation! Unauthorized occupancy! Vacate in 7 days!" My son turned and looked at me, his face pale. "Dad, she really thinks she can just take our home." I clenched the paper in my hand, my jaw tight. She thought we were just an ordinary family, powerless against her games. What she didn't know was I wasn't just some father trying to protect his house. I had a background that would turn her whole little empire upside down. That night I barely slept. Every sound outside made me think she was back with another trick. At around 2 a.m., headlights swept across my living room. I peeked through the blinds and saw a tow truck backing up to my driveway. My truck, the one I used to get to work, was already chained. I ran out in my slippers, yelling, "What are you doing? That's my vehicle!" The driver just shrugged. HOA order. And there she was, standing at the curb with her arms crossed, sipping from a silver thermos like it was morning coffee. "Your car doesn't meet community standards," she said smugly. "Consider this your first fine." My son came running out behind me, shouting, "This is illegal! You can't touch our stuff!" She tilted her head, smirking. "Illegal? Honey, I am the law here." The humiliation stung as the truck drove off with my only vehicle. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, some even recording with their phones, but no one stepped forward. She wanted me embarrassed. She wanted me broken. But as I walked back inside, my son asked, "What do we do now?" I put a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "We let her dig her own grave." Because in my study, locked in an old file cabinet, I had the original land deed, signed in my grandfather's name with my military service documents right next to it. She thought she was stripping power from some random guy. She had no idea I was trained to face much worse than a crooked HOA president. And this time, I wasn't going to fight her with anger. I was going to fight her with proof. The next morning, she came strutting down the street in her usual style, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, acting like the entire neighborhood was her kingdom. She didn't even knock this time. She just marched onto my porch again, snapping photos of my front yard. Overgrown grass, unsightly paint, unauthorized flag, she muttered loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Then she glared at my son's old basketball hoop and scribbled something down. "That's another fine!" I stepped outside, calm but firm. "You're trespassing." She smirked. "No, I'm documenting violations. And trust me, by the time I'm done, you'll wish you had moved out willingly." I stared at her silent while she filled her paper with made-up offenses. Then I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Keep talking," I said. Her smile cracked for a second, but she quickly snapped back. "Go ahead, post it! Everyone knows I run this place!" What she didn't notice was the unmarked car parked at the end of the street. A buddy of mine, someone who owed me a favor, was sitting inside, watching everything. He wasn't just a buddy, though. He was a deputy, and he already had copies of the deed and the so-called HOA notices she kept taping to my door.
That afternoon, she decided to up her game. I heard heavy boots stomping on my porch, and when I opened the door, two men in cheap uniforms stood there, badges clipped to their shirts, hands resting on their belts. "Sir, you've been reported for trespassing. We'll need you to vacate." Behind them, leaning on her shiny black SUV, she grinned like a villain in a movie. "Told you I'd have you out by the weekend," she called out. My son stepped beside me, fists clenched. "Those aren't real cops," he whispered. And he was right. Something about their badges looked off, their uniforms mismatched. I played along. "All right," I said slowly. "If you're officers, go ahead and show me your precinct ID." They froze. One of them stammered, the other shifted uncomfortably. My son pulled out his phone and started filming. The moment the camera's red light blinked, they turned away. One muttered, "We're done here," and both walked quickly back to her SUV. She panicked. "What are you doing? Get back here!" she snapped at them. But it was too late. We had it all on video. Her ordering fake cops to kick us out. She tried to cover, shouting, "He's dangerous! He's lying! You don't know who he really is!" That was when I stepped forward, my voice steady. "You're right. They don't know who I really am." I let the words hang, watching her eyes flicker with confusion. Because the truth, the part I hadn't revealed yet, was the card that would shatter everything she built. That night, the neighborhood was buzzing. Word spread fast after my son uploaded the video of her with the fake cops. Some neighbors who once stayed quiet started whispering, "If she can fake cops, what else is she hiding?" I saw curtains twitch as people stared at her villa, the one she bragged about at every HOA meeting. She tried damage control. The very next day, she showed up with pastries, knocking on doors, pretending to be the friendly neighbor again. But the smiles looked forced, and people weren't buying it. I watched her from my porch as she turned toward me, face tight. "You think you're clever, don't you? But all you've done is embarrass yourself. When I'm finished, you won't even have a roof over your head." I leaned against the railing, calm. "Funny thing," I said. "This roof? It's mine. Always has been." Her eyes narrowed. "Prove it." That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I reached inside, pulled out the black folder, and held it just high enough for her to see the embossed seal on the first page. Deed, signed by the county clerk in 1978. My grandfather's name, then mine. For the first time since this started, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, frozen, lips trembling, before she finally spat, "It doesn't matter. The HOA will never side with you." But she didn't know that one of her own board members had already called me the night before, and he was ready to testify against her. The HOA board gathered that weekend in the community hall, a place she usually ruled like a throne room. She walked in wearing her pearl necklace and fake confidence, slamming her folder on the table. "We're here to discuss the removal of an unauthorized resident," she declared, pointing straight at me. But this time, the room didn't echo with applause or nods. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then one of the board members, Mr. Lewis, cleared his throat. "Actually, we need to discuss something else." He slid a stack of papers across the table. Copies of the fake fines, forged permits, and the video of her with the so-called cops. Gasps filled the room. Her face turned pale. She shrieked, "This is nonsense! Lies! He planted all of it!" But the board wasn't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. My son, standing in the back with his phone recording, whispered, "She's finished, Dad." And just when I thought it couldn't get worse for her, the door swung open. The deputy who had been watching quietly all this time walked in, badge gleaming. He placed a flash drive on the table. "Security footage from the tow yard," he said, "shows her ordering the removal of his truck without legal authority." Her jaw dropped. She looked around the room, but no one would meet her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't the one in control. I leaned forward and said the line that had been burning in my chest since this started. I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't live on my own land.